Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our joint webinar presentation with Oracle Analytics. Today, we're going to be discussing how to marry analytics and science and really putting your retail data to work. We've seen a big shift in the retail space over the last year to year and a half, and there's no really better partner to walk us through all of these changes and how to better gather your data insights and make them work best for you than Oracle. My name is Yana Kolmakova, and I am the marketing director at US Analytics. We are a performance management consulting and services firm focused on empowering the finance office to drive strategic making decisions across your whole enterprise. We've been an Oracle partner of 21 years, and joining us today is Mark Lawrence, Solutions Director of Analytics and Enterprise at Oracle Retail Global Business Unit. And we've got Corey Nason, Senior Business Intelligence Architect with US Analytics. Okay, so before we officially dive in, I'm actually going to put up a couple polls for you, our audience, to answer. So let's run those real quick. So without further ado, I'm going to let Mark take the reins, and then Corey will actually join us a little bit later on and walk us through a client case study with Coaster, and then we will open it up to a live discussion for a Q&A and a demo. So Mark, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Yana. Mark Lawrence here. Hi, everybody. Before digging in, maybe a little bit of self-deprecating humor here. I wanted to apologize in advance. Because I've barely left the house since March, I've been getting a little crazy with PowerPoint, maybe a little too creative. So I built an image of a periodic table of retail elements to exemplify some core facts and dimensions in the solution I'm going to review with you. And getting to the point here, I think I've overused it a little bit in this deck, so apologies. If you're maybe viewing this recording out of business hours, you could almost turn it into a drinking game. Have a drink each time you see the periodic table. Anyway, that said, let's go ahead and get started here. Little safe harbor statement here, Oracle standard, and let's start with building a little bit on what Yana described as the retail market recently. Obviously, there's been a lot of change. In 2020, the global retail market was about $21 trillion in size. It took about a 1% hit from 2019, largely due to the pandemic. It's starting to recover now. Expected to grow 5% in each of the next few years to reach $25 trillion in 2023. Bottom line is, while retail did take a slight hit last year at a macro level, the industry is not only doing fine, it's doing great. However, as I think we all know, it's changing more rapidly than ever. People will continue to buy things, of course. It's just what, when, how, where, and why they buy will continue to evolve year over year over year. And so retailers simply need to adapt or die, to put it bluntly. And of course, I'd argue that those adaptation decisions, whether they be at the tactical level or the strategic level, they need to be informed by data, analytics, and decision science. So whether you're a grocer who, especially recently, is not struggling to generate demand, but is struggling to manage supply of certain items across your stores, or maybe a department store chain who has historically targeted seniors, but due to demographic changes needs to start catering to young families, or maybe you're a fashion retailer who knows that their generic one-size-fits-all approach to promotions isn't cutting it. They're both not enticing enough customers to act, and when they are, in many cases you're leaving money on the table, so they need more targeted offers. Maybe you're a specialty retailer who has forecasts and plans that are too informed on history and not predictive enough to consider the rapid changes that are impacting its business, from COVID-19 to maybe extreme weather events, maybe changes to their competitive landscape, evolving consumer tastes, or maybe new customer journeys like curbside pickup. So Bottom line is the case for retail analytics and science today is stronger than it has ever been by far. So, okay, enter Oracle Retail Insights. I'd like to introduce the solution by visually casting it against a typical high-level retail application footprint. One with applications that span areas of planning, buying, moving, and selling. And how from this sort of cross-section of applications, Retail Insights acquires any data that has potential analytical value and models that consolidated data for science and analytics, also known as descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics, and prepares and serves the insights back to the retail enterprise, whether the user's role centers on planning, buying, moving, selling, or all of the above. So Oracle Retail Insights reflects in many ways a very unified approach to retail analytics and science. Now, my career has centered on retail analytics for the past couple of decades, and I've had exposure to hundreds of retailers of all shapes and sizes from around the world. And I've seen a lot of bespoke solutions and a lot of silos that are anything but unified. And when I say unified here, I'm talking about a variety of things. For example, in the past, retailing was generally product centric. Retailers sold what products they had to sell, and their analytics reflected that. The analytics themselves were product centric, and any buying decisions or pricing decisions, space decisions, etc., rarely, if ever, considered a view of the customer. Customer insights tended to only inform advertising and marketing decisions. And so merchants and marketers worked off of siloed data and siloed analytic solutions. And casual users and power users often similarly worked with siloed tools. And often retail users consumed analytics that were governed or self-service, but not a blend of either as warranted. And often the more descriptive analytics were considered just reporting and disconnected with the more predictive and prescriptive analytics, again, also known as decision science. And operational workflows were separate from analytical workflows. It was more of a, leave your operational application and go get your reports elsewhere type of flow. And second and third party data wasn't fully blended with first party data, if it was blended at all. And retailers employed either a data warehouse or a data lake, but often not both. And if both, they weren't federated. And last but not least, there's rarely been, if ever, a direct line of sight between insight and action. In other words, what specific decision am I trying to inform? And then focusing a very specific analytic journey on that. So, unification is an obvious theme here, and probably beating it to death, but unification, and so is simplification to some extent. So with all that, let's talk about insights to action. From user to user and use case to use case, it's usually a unique journey involving a mix of types of analytic consumption, various tools, various levels of detail, various paths. And of course, to the extent that every step in that journey can be performed on one version of the truth in the cloud through one federated set of tools in collaboration with other users within your line of business and across other lines of business in a way that employs machine learning so that future decisions get smarter and smarter, and with the convenience of the cloud, from single sign-on to consistent service levels, consistent patches, upgrades, etc. Of course, all the better. So while the simplest insights to action journey may only involve, for example, what I'm calling here connect and what I'm calling here ultimately act, others might involve all of connect, analyze, experiment, explore, and act. So let me walk you through some examples of each of these. Starting with Connect, Oracle Retail Insights includes a tile-based and Oracle Analytics integrated portal framework that we call Retail Home. It's a of a single initial and optional access point. And it's all about simplifying users' interactions with the data and applications that are most relevant to their roles. So it's a role-based solution. You can see I'm signed in here as Jenny, and it's highly configurable. So a user, Jenny in this case, only sees what she wants to see, and she can change this at any time. So you can see it kind of starts with a tile-based dashboard, highlights select KPIs, got a configurable banner and side pane on the right. The KPIs can be sourced from the Retail Insights Oracle Analytics logical layer through REST services, as well as from other applications, Oracle and non-Oracle. And you can apply filtering at the dashboard level or down to the individual tile level. So for example, the user might only want the KPI shown to be for a certain department or maybe a certain class. We've also designed Retail Home to be responsive, so it reformats itself for various mobile devices. It'll reformat itself for an iPad, for example, if you're maybe walking through a store. So the tile clicks can launch applications, and I think that was showing in the demo video here a bit ago. And so you can expand the tiles also to reveal deeper insights, including full dashboards using Oracle data visualization. I'll get into this a bit more shortly. And you can manage favorites and notifications and really use Retail Home to support workflow orchestration, various insights to action workflows. You can even configure it to take action directly from a tile. You might not even have to leave home, to use a little quip, a little pandemic related quip. All right, so moving on, beyond Retail Home, we have what I'm calling Analyze. This ties to Oracle Analytics Classic. For those of you with an OBIE background, we used to call this Answers. And this is often where governed analytics occurs. This is largely the place for standard, centrally managed dashboards, of which, by the way, Oracle Retail Insights packages about 100 of them out of the box. Experiment, what I'm calling experiment here, tends to involve science and advanced analytics. So Retail Insights includes a science platform that applies tools like R and Python and Oracle Application Express to support the more predictive and prescriptive analytics. I'm talking things like what-if analysis and even serving as a platform for innovation where you can build your own applications on top of our platform. And what I'm calling Explore here ties to Oracle data visualization, which is appropriate less for the governed analytics and more, of course, for self-service analytics. Now, across Connect, Analyze, Experiment, and Explore all tie to the Retail Insights semantic layer, or what we sometimes call the RPD, which holds now over 18,000 packaged retail-specific measures, metrics, and KPIs. And of course, all can also blend data from other sources. So you can continue to build out the solution where there may be gaps with your requirements. So, across Connect, Analyze, Experiment, Explore, all in the cloud, all the same user authentication, the same underlying job scheduler managing the data, et cetera. I might be beating this to death, but note the continued emphasis on unification and simplification as themes here. So by the way, while ACT might involve a user jumping into an operational application, in some cases it might not. So based on the same underlying Retail Insights platform, we also have a series of optimization apps. And these are prescriptive apps that leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning to recommend specific decisions concerning things like promotions, markdowns, offers, space, assortments, and inventory. The little video here that I'm showing is our offer optimization functionality. Then also, by the way, you might have noticed some chatbots in these demo videos. These are supported with Oracle Digital Assistant and can be used to ask Oracle questions or give the application instructions. So, these bots can be trained and improved with machine learning. It's a nice way for some users to interact with the solution if they choose to. packaged use of Oracle Digital Assistant at this time. It's limited to this offer optimization functionality, but we do intend to expand packaged ODA use to other portions of the solution. All right, and here is the first view of that periodic table that I warned you and joked about a little bit earlier. So beneath all of this that I've described above is we've got a 700 plus table dimensional star schema. And I'm trying to just kind of summarize and represent it in a scientific way in this periodic table of elements. It's the model is built specifically for retail analytics and science. You know, we've got some non-dimensional shapes for some science, but it's largely a dimensional star schema, of course, built on Oracle database. It is pre-integrated to the color-coded data sources that you see in the legend, but we have universal adapters for each and every inbound data element. So it could be integrated with just about everything. And we have integrated this with some pretty crazy non-Oracle and bespoke systems over the years, trust me. So we've also built in type 2 slowly changing dimensions to support what we call as is versus as was views of history to kind of accurately reflect any reclassifications in the item or organization hierarchies. And then here in this video you're looking at here, this is of course Oracle data visualization. And the left pane that I'm scrolling through here in the video is showing some of the package measures and attributes. Again, we've got over 18,000 package measures. Those are split almost evenly between as is and as was, and about 3,500 attributes. And so they're all defined in the solution. We've got mouse over metric and attribute definitions that may or may not pop up on this video. And the model and the metric names, the definitions, the derivations are all based on retail industry best practices, and through DV as well as Oracle Analytics Classic, they're available to basically drag and drop to support self-service analytics. Now, some more things about the model. Many retailers do run the solution on Exadata, which really tempers the need for aggregations, but still we've really overloaded the data model with aggregations. But they are flexible, so you can aggregate to the extent that you need to and strike the proper balance between the performance of loads versus the performance of queries. And so, for example, if you're maybe a marketing analyst and you're using the solution to find your next best customers, central to your analysis might be customer, consumer, and consumer segment. Now, these in our solution, again, can be populated by just about any data source that you want, but from a pre-integrated perspective, they're populated by the Oracle Data Cloud's collective of over 1,500 US-based retailers. And here's that first plus third-party data that I mentioned earlier. So, enrich my first-party customer profiles so that I can better understand who my current best customers are, and then leverage that understanding to inform lookalike modeling of collective consumer data to identify the best prospects to target. Of course, as that marketing analyst, I'd want to analyze a blend of this customer and consumer data with, say, promotions, maybe with trade areas, price zones, plan data, maybe even weather data, and other elements in the model. And because all of this data is already modeled and prepared for you, it can be served up on Oracle Analytics. So again, we have over 100 packaged governed Oracle Analytics Classic dashboards in RI, and a growing collection of some sample data visualization dashboards as well. And I'll show you some more of these in just a bit. So yeah, here's that periodic table yet again. So again, this is largely a dimensional star schema. It's a data warehouse. As a cloud service, this is a SaaS model. You can extend the data model, at least to some extent, the RPD for that matter too, but And for example, over here on the right, we have a flexible fact. And this is something that we've built out as a table that you can populate however you see fit. And you can also use, like I mentioned earlier, Oracle Application Express to model out and populate additional data. But because this is a SaaS solution, you can't modify the package data model. You can extend it, but not modify it, because as a SaaS solution, it must, of course, remain upgradable. Now, we've also have an optional data lake based on Oracle's big data tech stack, which supports extending the solution with additional structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data for what I'd like to call an endless aisle of sorts of additional data and analyses that can be blended with the packaged metadata using data visualization. Now, for the data warehouse, we use Oracle standard technology like ODI and REST services for inbound data, Oracle database, of course, for the data warehouse portion of the solution, a variety of Oracle and open source tools for preparation. And along with Oracle Analytics, we also surface insights through some other tools like Jet, and like I mentioned earlier, Python for science, and we expose our outputs through REST services. Now for big data, also known as the data lake, we have a tech stack that runs in parallel to acquire, model, prepare, and serve big data. So we use, in a nutshell, we use Flink and Kafka for data collection and aggregation. We use the Cloudera distribution of Hadoop, Zookeeper for service coordination, Hive for a SQL-like interface to Hadoop, but of course Oracle Data Visualization might also be used here, Python as well. And then Oracle Big Data connectors to move data between the data warehouse and the data lake. We also have a DMP, or data management platform, as I mentioned earlier, in Oracle Data Cloud, that can enrich your first-party customer data and also inject collective third-party consumer data into the data warehouse. So for example, if you wanted to, say, dump a terabyte's worth of tweets into Hadoop and maybe run a Python script against it, and maybe it includes Twitter handles for each, and you have those Twitter handles in your customer dimension in the data warehouse, you could match on handle and push some customer attributes out to Hadoop for your Python script. And I'm winging it here a little bit, but then that Python script's results in Hadoop could be copied over into the data warehouse for other uses. Hopefully this is making sense, or at least you get the gist. Again, it's all about unification of platform and data. All right, and so with the non-functional side of the solution as a backdrop, let's review some examples of the functional side. So again, the solution not only informs users of what is happening and why, but what will happen and when, and how can I influence what will happen. And so, of course, artificial intelligence is ubiquitous here, and most of the packaged predictive prescriptive analytics involve supervised machine learning. So the AI gets smarter and smarter. I say supervised because some human input is typically required. It's usually involving setting criteria, parameters, configurations. And across planning, buying, moving, and selling, and across just about every imaginable retail role, there's some analytical value here. So let's just briefly step through some examples. Bear with me here. I'll be going through these next slides pretty quickly. So maybe Felix wants to review general performance of the past week each Monday morning, by division, by channel, by price point. At a very high level, how did we do? In retail, of course, balanced weekly business reviews are very common. And similarly, Isabel checks certain KPIs of interest to her on a daily basis, maybe with more of a focus on the best and worst performing stores. Maybe more of an exception-based view is what she wants. Connor. So Connor, in his role, he's all about inventory, of course. His mission is inventory health. not too much to minimize costs and not too little to risk stockouts. Maybe Sammy has his eye on sales and inventory at the category and department levels. Maybe Olivia does too, but she's also concerned about post-holiday season return rates. You can see my little heat map over here. And, like Ivan, Ben might also be analyzing inventory health, but he's also considering shrink and also relative to not only returns, but also relative to supplier performance. And back to Olivia, maybe she's tracking weekly channel use and maybe looking to correlate the choice of channel with the department shopped. And so those are all examples of descriptive analytics. So we have retailers like, for example, we have Gap Intermix, we have Barnes and Noble College, we have Restoration Hardware. Those are some examples of retailers using the solution in these sorts of ways. But again, powered by our science platform, which is part of the solution with all that unified tech that I described earlier, along with statistical algorithms that support AI and machine learning. And I'll just rattle off some. I'm talking about decision trees, simulation, natural language processing, feature extraction, anomaly detection, optimization and regression. The list goes on, but we've got packaged, predictive, and prescriptive analytics as well. And we have retailers like Helzberg Diamonds, Naughty Medical. We've also got a major US-based amusement park chain that we all know and love. I just wanted to round out a balanced set of retail verticals here, are all using these advanced analytics today too. And so David, here as my data scientist, he might work with a science platform through not Oracle Analytics, but through our packaged Java-based screens with workflows to provide inputs for the science, hence the reference to supervised machine learning from earlier. So like criteria for generating store clusters or maybe thresholds to identify basket affinities. He might also use the platform to experiment and explore, to innovate in ways that are unique to his company. He might work with Python. He might even build entire applications using Oracle Application Express. That's an avenue that I'm particularly excited about these days. I'll give you one example. Here's an example, clienteling. We have one of our customers using Oracle Application Express and our platform to build a clienteling application. And Sarah, in this case, my fictitious role, is running this on her iPad. So she can look up customers as they enter the store and not only help them with the products that they're interested in, but also provide offers that are targeted specifically to those customers based on past behaviors, demographics, psychographics, maybe even informed by excess inventory levels. Again, all driven on our platform and based on our package science. And this screenshot, by the way, is actually an app built by a customer of ours in the Middle East. So you'll see some Arabic that actually I just noticed there. But that's, I think, a good example of using Application Express and advanced analytics on our platform. But David might also configure affinity analysis, also known as market basket analysis. This is an application that uses association rules mining to spin through months or years of sales history to discover what sells with what and to whom, and then mashes that up with promotional performance to find any promotional halo or cannibalization effects. So for example, what happens if we have a very profitable item affinity in one or more segments, and then we promote item A, but not item B? What sort of lift would there be to item B? And would also promoting item B be unwarranted and hurt profits? The solution can also be used to correlate item attributes with the basket and then and use that to inform assortment decisions. So do we have too many blue pillows in the assortment and maybe too many items or perhaps too many units of certain items? That can be informed here as well. And so with that, Ben might make some specific promotion decisions. All right, now David might also deal with clustering. Of course, while retailers enjoy the economies of large quantities of stores, with all that's happening in the retail space with competitive pressures and increasingly finicky customers, lots of times localized decisions make sense, and often not down to the individual store level, but on groupings of stores that are similar in meaningful ways, like sales performance, like store formats, maybe customer demographics, various assortments, etc. And so with this, Olivia can then drive various decisions at store cluster levels. And then, of course, assess the efficacy of those decisions with Oracle Analytics. And here's another case, in some ways similar to store clustering, we have customer segmentation. So should we segment our customers by demographics, age, income, gender, marital status, etc., or behavioral data? Let's segment them into, okay, here are the snowbirds, here are the soccer moms, here are the greenies, etc. Maybe transactional data. Maybe we could segment based on what have they bought and where and when and how. RFM scores, perhaps. So David might, working with his users, of course, define segment criteria, review the segment results, and then assess the segment insights, and then if and when desired, rinse and repeat. The segmentations could be set for more strategic decisions, like where to open your next store or where to offer a new category. Perhaps more tactical decisions as well, like just generating a list of targets for a new promotion. And for example, because those segmentations are part of the company's one version of the truth in Oracle Retail Insights, Michelle can analyze performance of both product and customer in concert. All right, and here's another example. And this, if you can see my background, is bags of coffee. This is me just about every week when I go grocery shopping. I like dark roast espresso, whole bean, and to be candid, I would buy Illy brand if they have it. But if not, I might be inclined to buy Starbucks or maybe a more local brand. But unless I have no choice, I would almost never buy ground coffee. I would absolutely never buy instant. So what I'm describing here is called a customer decision tree. So in the context of machine learning, it's a tool that uses a tree-like graph, like I'm showing here, to model a customer's decision-making process for a specific product. And the branches here represent the choices and the order of importance of those choices to the customer. The tree illustrates how customers shop and how they evaluate the importance of different product attributes when they make their buying decisions. Now, CDTs, customer decision trees, can inform assortment decisions as well as display decisions. And then with an understanding of potential demand transference, it can really materially impact a retailer's sales forecasts. So in this case, Fatima, my role, would be happy. Moving on now, Stu, the data steward, knows that garbage in means garbage out, and the importance of having complete and correct item attributes is critical. But suppliers sometimes send retailers item descriptions that are more like free-form text, and they're difficult to interpret. So our science platform applies natural language processing to interpret various acronyms, abbreviations, misspellings, a variety of inconsistencies to extract attributes and then bin them for use. So when Michelle drills into her item performance, she gets a clear picture of performance by brand, size, flavor, roast, etc. All right, and here's another quick use case involving our science, size profiles. So size profiles represent the distribution of demand across different sizes for different products and location levels. So based on a clear picture of demand, Ben can order more XL sizes here and fewer medium sizes there. And by the way, for all of these cases, when I'm referring to our science, these use cases are not supported by just a toolkit. These are fully built applications that are ready to run out of the box, so to speak. So I just wanted to make that clear. A solution also drives promotion and pricing decisions for the entire product life cycle, from promotion to markdown to targeted offers. So the key here is providing consistent execution, again, through closed loop insights to action, incorporating price and promotion plans and projected receipts and returns. So again, insights to action on one platform is the action feeding more insights, and then there's continual improvement going forward because, again, this is all within the same unified platform. Here's another one. Our inventory optimization science balances inventory across your stores by recommending redistributions. So we're talking about both offense and defense here. So both to exploit opportunities for margin and also to avoid needs for markdowns. And so it also works with our offer optimization science, so you can balance driving demand with your manipulation of supply, again, in one unified platform. All right, and my last example here is what I'll call consumer conversion, also known as customer acquisition. And I alluded to this one a bit earlier. So here goes. So Lucas wants to identify his best prospects and use advanced analytics to determine the best way to activate those prospects. He might decide targeted promotion via email or ads via text or social media, etc. So he'll mine the massive retail data collective in the Oracle Data Cloud for his best prospects, and then determine how best to activate those prospects, and then review the results and apply any lessons learned, and then rinse and repeat and continually improve with machine learning going forward. Next time he wants to remine the DMP to find his next best customers, the science will get smarter and smarter. All right, so I'll wrap all of this up right now. Just to briefly summarize what I've reviewed, I introduced Oracle Retail Insights to you with a backdrop of retail applications and data and roles pertaining to planning, buying, moving, and selling. I described various ways that the retail analytics space has historically struggled to be unified. And yes, I showed the periodic table of mine way too many times. And I walked through a number of ways that various roles can glean analytical value from the solution in ways that are descriptive, predictive, prescriptive, and combinations of any of those three. All right, let me just close on this note. In retail these days, the most important role isn't Ben's or David's or Michelle's, it's Catherine's. If you work for a retailer, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but please put customer insights behind any decisions you make wherever practical, and do it as if your business's survival depends upon it, because it very well might. This is where retail, not where retail is heading, this is where retail is. It's all about the customer. All right, that's it for my Oracle Retail Solution overview. I'm going to transition to Corey now. Corey's going to review some of the sample US Analytics retail implementations. All right, Corey, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate the insights to the product. I want to talk quickly about one of our clients that we've just recently completed a project with. It's Coaster, the Coaster Company. They're a furniture manufacturing and importing company based in California. Have 8,000 employees, a $1 billion privately held company. And their primary interest was to streamline company-wide reporting. The project began as a S-based upgrade, but was quickly converted to a data warehouse and using OAC. The team was made up of stakeholders from the client, Andy Tang and John Lee. And then the US Analytics team, they're David Decker, Becky Wagner, Brian Hall, myself, and Amit. So let's talk about some of the challenges and solutions that and the results. client was using Brio for their financial reporting. The reporting they were doing was painfully slow. They had multiple homegrown systems on SQL Server databases, multiple customer tables, no ability to monitor the warehouse turnaround times for e-com orders. They were having trouble monitoring goods and having a big issue with being able to track orders from their overseas manufacturers all the way in through their warehouses and out to the end users, their customers. Solution, we used Oracle Analytics Cloud implementation with an autonomous data warehouse. We were able to consolidate all these disparate systems, the multiple homegrown systems, multiple customer tables, and bring it all together so that we could produce and monitor the real-time warehouse. We were able to get tracking of damaged goods. We were able to pull data from the products being ordered all the way in through the warehouse and into the end users, with a planned phase to include PBCS. So what were the results of this implementation? Well, we were able to streamline reporting. Using this data warehouse, we were able to track replenishment from overseas, again, tracking the order from manufacturers through shipping all the way to the warehouse and then on to the final customer. We were able to monitor damaged goods. What supplier did they come from? What ship were they on, as an example? What warehouse did they go to? All those different kinds of things are all being able to tracked and monitored. We created executive level dashboarding so that at a very high level, the executives of the company could keep an eye on what was going on and monitor all of these different dashboards or different KPIs that we were creating for them. And finally, the business has been able to quickly change from reactive to proactive. By being able to track orders from overseas, they're able to know what's going on faster and therefore be proactive rather than waiting until the very last minute to find out that a shipment was late or has been diverted and have to react to that. So those are the major results that came out of this. You'll see at the bottom right corner, there's a picture of one of our dashboards that we created for them. That pretty much summarizes this project at Coaster. Again, being able to track product from order to ultimately the client, being able to track damaged goods, being able to know where your product is, whether it's still in manufacture or it's in a container on a ship coming to the States, and being able to react quicker to those situations that might arise. I'm going to turn this back over to Yana to take us through some of US Analytics.
Thank you, Corey and Mark. That was a great presentation to kind of lead retailers into the future. I think there's a lot that they can take away from this and all of the insights that we've gathered today. So this really concludes our webinar. We really appreciate everyone for joining us today. I just want to remind you that US Analytics and Oracle have been partners for over 21 years. We work very closely with Oracle. And in terms of our firm, we really bring insights to your fingertips, free up IT resources, and strive to empower your team to be boardroom advisors. That's really, we're all about picturing results. Helped hundreds of companies uncover really a holistic 360-degree view of their business and enable them to make the most strategic decisions. So that's really what we pride ourselves in. We have a ton of resources on our website. You can check out usanalytics.com/resources, where we have ample case studies, much like the Coaster one that was presented. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. You can email marketing@usanalytics.com, and really, we are so excited to help you this year with everything that you need to accomplish in your enterprise performance management systems and analytics systems to really drive your business forward. This is just a quick sampling of the verticals that we specialize in for project implementation, upgrades, support, Like I said, in our 21 years of doing business, we're very well versed in a multitude of verticals and business types, and we'd love to help you guys. Okay, so this is really a snapshot of everything that US Analytics specializes in. We have a lot of service offerings and focused solutions for, again, any vertical or industry type. And before we wrap out the webinar officially, please, let's just take a moment for a question and answer portion of this webinar. So I'll let you guys fill out the questions in the question box if you haven't done so already. So we'll just take a few minutes for that. And then Mark and Corey can spend a couple minutes answering those. Any questions that we don't get to will be sent out in an additional resource following the webinar as well. So thank you all for joining us today. We hope that, again, you gathered a lot of insight from this. Please let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to help. And thank you to our presenters, Mark and Corey.